You know how Captain America was frozen for decades and woke up to a hero's welcome? Well, America had real-life black superheroes who weren't frozen. They were just erased from the history books. The Buffalo Soldiers fought for a country that wouldn't even let them use the same water fountains as white folks. I'm talking about badass warriors who earned 18 Medals of Honor while white America was like, "Thanks for saving our asses, now go use the back door." These guys weren't just fighting Native Americans on the frontier. They were fighting racism every single day, and somehow they still showed up to work. Ever wonder who would sign up to fight for a country that treated them like trash? Meet the Buffalo Soldiers, the original "We'll Do It Anyway" squad. It's 1866, the Civil War just wrapped up, and America's like, "Hey, we need more soldiers, but not the white kind." So they create these all-black regiments, the 9th and 10th Cavalry and the 24th and 25th Infantry. And get this, they're not temporary wartime units. These were the first peacetime all-black regiments in the regular army. America was basically saying, "We need your help, but don't get comfortable." But here's the crazy part. Black men actually lined up to join. Why would anyone sign up for that? Well, imagine you're a newly freed slave. You've got no money, no education, and white society is pretty much telling you to go die somewhere. Then suddenly, there's this opportunity to get a regular salary, food, shelter, and maybe, just maybe, a little respect. For many former slaves and black Civil War vets, the army wasn't just a job. It was one of the only paths to something resembling dignity. The whole setup was messed up from the start. These black soldiers had to prove themselves worthy of basic human rights by risking their lives. And the ultimate irony? They were sent to fight Native Americans. That's right. The US government took one oppressed group, gave them guns, and told them to go fight another oppressed group. It was like America's first divide-and-conquer strategy. Two peoples fighting for their place in America while white leadership sat back and benefited. These black regiments earned their legendary nickname from an unexpected source, the very Native Americans they were fighting against. Various theories exist, but one suggests the Comanche bestowed the name Buffalo Soldiers because they recognized these black warriors' toughness in battle. Another theory says it was because their dark, curly hair reminded the Native Americans of buffalo fur. Some accounts even claim it was related to the buffalo robes the soldiers wore during harsh winter campaigns. Either way, it wasn't a derogatory name. It came from genuine respect for their fighting abilities. And these guys didn't just accept the nickname, they owned it. The 10th Cavalry was so proud of being called Buffalo Soldiers that they straight up put a buffalo figure on their regimental coat of arms. It was like saying, "Yeah, we're badass. Deal with it." The standards black men had to meet to become Buffalo Soldiers were ridiculous compared to white recruits. Take literacy, for example. That might not sound like a big deal today, but remember, most of these men were former slaves who had been legally prohibited from learning to read. Education for black people was literally a crime in many southern states before the Civil War. But that didn't stop them. Many learned to read specifically to qualify for the army, and not all Buffalo Soldiers were former slaves either. Many were free blacks from northern states who'd already proven themselves fighting in the Civil War. These were men who'd tasted a little freedom and weren't about to back down from another challenge. You want to talk about determination? Let me paint you a picture of what these soldiers had to work with. While white cavalry units got the best horses, equipment, and assignments, Buffalo Soldiers got the dregs. Broken down horses no one else wanted. Outdated weapons. The worst postings in the harshest territories. It was like entering a boxing match with one arm tied behind your back. But here's the kicker. Despite all these disadvantages, the Buffalo Soldiers weren't just good enough. They were exceptional. Their desertion rate was less than half that of white cavalry units. Think about that for a second. The guys getting worse treatment, worse equipment, and worse assignments stuck it out at twice the rate of their white counterparts. That's not just impressive, it's mind-blowing. Speaking of mind-blowing, what kind of country offers you a Medal of Honor with one hand while slapping you with discrimination with the other? The Buffalo Soldiers weren't just collecting war trophies, they were stacking military honors while being treated like they weren't even worthy to drink from the same water fountain as the white soldiers they fought alongside. Take Private Henry Johnson of the Ninth Cavalry. This guy literally ran through enemy fire to bring water to wounded soldiers during a battle with the Ute Indians. He earned one of the highest military honors possible, then probably couldn't even get served water himself at local establishments. The mental strength required to keep fighting for a country actively fighting against you is almost incomprehensible. And Johnson wasn't alone. Buffalo Soldiers racked up impressive combat achievements across multiple conflicts. But what happened when these decorated heroes stepped off the battlefield? Pure absurdity. These same men who protected America's frontier towns often couldn't even walk through the front door of the businesses they were stationed to protect. Imagine risking your life day after day to guard a town where shopkeepers would either refuse to serve you or threaten violence if you tried to enter. That wasn't just occasional rudeness, it was a daily reality. The military itself wasn't much better. Beyond the separate quarters and inferior equipment, Buffalo Soldiers faced ridiculous regulations specifically designed to remind them of their place. They had to salute not just white officers, but their wives too, a requirement white soldiers didn't face. Officer positions? Basically off limits. Equal pay for equal work and equal risk? Nope. The military had an entire playbook of discriminatory policies targeting black soldiers that white soldiers never had to deal with. Some Buffalo Soldiers eventually reached their breaking point. The Houston Uprising of 1917 showed what happens when you push people past their limits. After enduring relentless abuse and discrimination in Houston, Texas, a group of Buffalo Soldiers finally snapped. The resulting confrontation turned violent, highlighting the boiling tensions between these African American soldiers and the military establishment that claimed to value them while treating them like second-class citizens. But the real moral mindfuck came when Buffalo Soldiers were ordered to suppress other minority groups. During border disputes with Mexico, these black soldiers found themselves enforcing the same kind of unjust policies they suffered under themselves. Imagine the psychological complexity of that situation, being the tool of oppression while simultaneously being oppressed. Buffalo Soldiers often found themselves in this impossible position, caught between duty and the painful awareness that they were perpetuating against others the same system that was crushing them. What's truly wild is how many Buffalo Soldiers maintained their dignity and professionalism through all of this. Despite the constant disrespect and dehumanization, many continued to serve with distinction. They didn't just endure the discrimination, they excelled in spite of it, consistently proving their worth through their actions even when the country refused to acknowledge it. Think about what that does to a person psychologically. You're good enough to die for your country, but not good enough to eat at the same table as your fellow soldiers. You're trusted with a rifle to defend American citizens, but not trusted to walk through the front door of an American business. You're celebrated for your bravery in battle reports, but segregated in the military records. The cognitive dissonance alone would break most people. Yet the Buffalo Soldiers persisted. They continued to fight, continued to serve, continued to prove their worth in a system designed to devalue them at every turn. They transformed discrimination into determination, turning prejudice into fuel for excellence. They knew they had to be twice as good to get half the credit, and somehow they managed to exceed even those impossible standards. That determination to excel didn't stop at military combat. It spilled into completely unexpected territory. While history textbooks conveniently skip this chapter, these same soldiers who couldn't enter most white establishments were secretly building America's national park system and conservation efforts from the ground up. Yeah, you heard that right. The iconic flat-brimmed hat that every park ranger wears today. That fashion statement traces back to Buffalo soldiers patrolling Yosemite and Sequoia national parks in the early 1900s, long before Smokey was warning anyone about forest fires. These men weren't just fighting America's enemies, they were literally building America itself. While white settlers enjoyed the benefits of westward expansion, Buffalo soldiers were the ones constructing crucial infrastructure across the frontier. Roads that connected isolated communities. Buffalo soldiers built those. Telegraph lines that revolutionized communication. Buffalo soldiers installed them. And here's the kicker. Many of these same soldiers couldn't even use the very roads they paved or enter the towns they helped develop because of their skin color. Talk about a twisted form of gratitude. But nothing showcases their overlooked contributions more than their groundbreaking role as America's first national park rangers. Years before the National Park Service even existed, Buffalo soldiers from the 24th Infantry and 9th Cavalry were assigned to protect Yosemite and Sequoia national parks from poachers, illegal loggers, and wildfire. They'd patrol thousands of acres on horseback, navigating some of America's most challenging terrain while enforcing rules and protecting wildlife. Their conservation work was next level. These soldiers fought raging wildfires with nothing but basic tools and raw courage. They confronted armed poachers who were illegally hunting in the parks. And get this, Buffalo soldiers constructed the first trail to the summit of Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the contiguous United States. All of this happened during an era when outdoor recreation was considered almost exclusively a whites-only activity. Imagine building trails you weren't even supposed to hike on during your free time. One of the most remarkable figures in this forgotten chapter was Captain Charles Young. As the third black graduate of West Point, Young shattered barriers when he became the first black superintendent of a national park at Sequoia in 1903. His leadership was legendary. During his single summer as acting superintendent, Young's troops built more roads into the park than the previous 3 white superintendents combined, all while facing the constant weight of racism from visitors who couldn't wrap their minds around taking orders from a black officer. And speaking of breaking barriers, let me introduce you to Cathay Williams, the only known woman to ever serve in the Buffalo Soldiers. In 1866, Williams disguised herself as a man, took the name William Cathay, and successfully enlisted in the 38th Infantry Regiment. She served for 2 whole years before a doctor discovered her secret during a hospital stay. Even more incredible, she pulled this off right after the Civil War, when medical examinations were, actually a thing. Talk about determination. But what happened to these trailblazing soldiers after their service ended reveals the cruel paradox of their existence. Many Buffalo soldiers returned home to face even worse discrimination than they experienced in the Army. Some were attacked or even lynched simply for wearing their military uniforms in public, as if their service to the country somehow made them more threatening to the racial hierarchy. The uniform that should have garnered respect instead sometimes marked them as targets in communities threatened by the sight of black men in positions of authority. Communities across America used roads built by Buffalo soldiers while simultaneously banning those same veterans from their businesses, schools, and neighborhoods. The parks they protected became national treasures while their contributions were erased from history. Some veterans found community in all-black towns in the West, while others joined the Great Migration to northern cities, seeking opportunity and escape from Southern Jim Crow laws. So here's the truth. The Buffalo Soldiers were fighting two wars at once, one on the battlefield and another against a system designed to deny their humanity. And yet somehow their legacy has been largely sidelined in our cultural memory. While Hollywood pumps out superhero franchise after franchise, these real-life black heroes have received minimal screen time. The 1997 film starring Danny Glover and Spike Lee's Miracle at St. Anna are rare exceptions that managed to break through. What's crazy is how organizations like the National Museum of African American History and Culture have had to work overtime just to preserve this essential American story. As Edna Wagner from the Richard Allen Cultural Center put it, these soldiers and Native Americans gained respect for one another in the sense that they recognized they were all fighting to be free. Just imagine how different America might look today if we'd celebrated these heroes instead of erasing them, if their courage had been rewarded with equality instead of continued discrimination. I'm just saying, we owe them more than footnotes in history books.